start on time. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Judy Ann Kellaway. I'm the Associate Dean for Admissions and Outreach here at the Long School of Medicine. And welcome to the Club Pre-Med monthly web chat. New topic. So we haven't ever talked in this setting about gap years. So we're going to devote this time to gap years. And everybody sent in a bunch of great ideas.
They both seem like they were pretty nice dudes.
Everybody sent in a bunch of great ideas, and I have us organized a little bit. So let me go ahead and jump in. I'm going to be trying to watch the chat. I'm so happy for you to just unmute and say your question, tell us your ideas, whatever the case may be. Okay, you ready? So gap years, planned, unplanned. Actually, the people who registered for this session today, it turned out to be about half and half, people who are still in school and people in their traditional pathway, and about half are in a non-traditional pathway out of college already. So gap years, you can plan them, or they can jump up on you when you're trying to make an application and you realize that you don't have everything together that you wished you had. So either way, I think there are some great things that you can do with this extra time, some great things. Common reasons are you see some deficiencies in your application. We'll talk about COVID in a minute, because that's certainly causing some limitations for everybody who's a pre-med right now. So we'll talk about COVID in a minute, but you might see that you haven't had a chance to get enough health care and that kind of thing. So or volunteer work, you've been busy concentrating on your studies and planned to do extra time outside of college. So those are all perfectly good reasons. Sometimes it's grade repair. Let me just say now that I hear a lot of people say, oh, I'm going to do a master's. And my first question is, why are you thinking to do a master's? And is it because, what is your GPA? And sometimes, if you love it and you're pursuing a master's in public health because you love it, then that's a wonderful idea. But if your grades are really okay, the master's may not add that much. So you really have to want to do this. Do you know what I'm saying? Should be a chosen thing. A lot of times many times I have spoken to a pre-med who is in that junior year ready to apply, and it feels like the world is coming down in a crushing way, and trying to keep good grades, trying to study for that MCAT and make the application happen is all just a little too much. And they've got a study plan and they're working along in the MCAT study plan, but it just feels overwhelming. And so sometimes your timeline is perfectly okay for you to shift the timeline. It's perfectly okay. Your application, if your application, anyway, let me rephrase that. Your application can only be stronger with delaying things for a time. So as long as you're doing the right things, and we're going to share ideas in just a second. So a lot of times I have said to people, why don't you stop all that, concentrate on your studies, finish out your college work, and then find some great things to do in a gap year and devote months of daily dedicated study to the MCAT, because that's burdensome for everybody. So then you can devote some time just to that, hopefully, in some settings. So you do have to continue your good work. And remember, I've said, you're not doing these things to check them off a checklist, right? Why are you volunteering? You're volunteering because you want to help people. and you want to live your life helping people with medicine, which you can't do yet, but you can certainly help people. So that shows us your heart of service, your mindset of service. Um, you're headed down a road towards medicine, so you want to try to continue getting experiences that are healthcare or clinically or medically related, right? So it's not just the checkbox, but if you are going to live this life, it's probably a good idea to continue those activities that are on your personal biography already. Sometimes as a graduate, if you're already in a gap year, it's a little hard to find honors. Sometimes, those are more college related. The honors, those first sections in the personal biography, honors, leadership, research. Leadership and research might be a little bit easier, but people understand that you need to continue to look at your personal biography and see where you're strong and where you might want to add some things to make you a better person, a better physician down the road, right? So you want to keep doing that. Let me see if I had, so I have some, I looked at all your questions and I grouped them. And so now I'm going to talk about some of the process type questions that people asked. Are gap years frowned upon? How does the admissions committee perceive taking a gap year? Does it look good? Does it look bad on a medical school application? I think sometimes we don't even realize that there has been a gap in a person's trajectory because we see all the activities, okay? If you are doing a gap year to do grade repair, if you are doing that so that you can devote time to MCAT, we are going to look, if you find yourself in a situation that you're a reapplicant, we do look for, do you have a heart of service? Are you going to be a caring and compassionate individual by evidence of what you've been doing? So if there are gaps in your activities, that's not so great, I guess we'll get to COVID in a minute. So, so it is absolutely not frowned upon. And I don't know that it even, I think people question why aren't you on a traditional pathway years ago, because it was much more common just to go right into medical school from college, but it's very different now. And I looked up the numbers for y'all, and in the last few years, we have had between 40 to 50% of our class being out at least 1 year. So no, it's not frowned upon. Do medical students prefer students with or without a gap year? I don't think that matters. We prefer, we look for strength in the application. We look for people who've been industrious and working to put good into the world and improve themselves on this pathway. So there's not really a preference there. And I don't know how to answer this one. Are there things you shouldn't do during a gap year? So you shouldn't get yourself in trouble. But I can't think of anything else that, we've got, maybe from the previous application workshops, there are things that are lower level in an application considered from the committee's perspective and things that are higher level from the committee's perspective. So you want to try to continue to do some high level things. Do you remember what those are? Is anybody who's been here before? Wave at me or give me a thumbs up or something. And so others of you might be new to our discussions, and I'm referring back to other web chats, and the recordings are on our YouTube channel. So go play me at double speed. Someday I'm going to go and paraphrase things so you get the message in less than an hour and a half, because that's painful, I think. Anyway, so I can't think of anything that you shouldn't do besides get yourself in trouble, right? Can anybody think of anything? I can't think of anything that you should not do. And is your gap year heavily emphasized in interviews? So I would say the things that are probably high value to us or very meaningful to you are the things that are emphasized in the application. I mean, in the interview setting. Okay. And now, the application has, it has 3 questions. You can expand. I forget how many characters it is, but you can describe what 3 things are most meaningful to you on this journey, and give it a little more prose besides your personal statement and the short answers that you've got. So you want to remain an active applicant. What are some activities that are looked upon favorably by admissions committees? Some of you know, what's high value? What's high value to an admissions committee? Anybody want to go in the chat and talk or unmute? You want me to do it? Okay, I'll do it. You need to find places where you can, situations where you put yourself in the room with a physician who's taking care of a patient and their family. That's high value. So that's shadowing and scribing. Honestly, I think that because you're trained in scribing settings, and that's your job, that is your job, to be there and to listen and to pay attention to what's going on. And you can elevate your responsibilities in that role so that you're a scribe trainer, or they put you with the difficult doctor who can't get used to the technology. That's high value. Okay. Other sorts of medical work are great things to do, but you have to have shadowing and scribing. High value for other types of volunteer work are settings where you put yourself with other people, and you may be getting a lot out of that service, that giving, but you're putting yourself in a situation where you're doing a wonderful thing for that person who, their highlight of a week or a month or something is you showing up to play bingo or Scrabble, at the residential facility, or that sort of thing. I call it heart to heart, hand to hand. So when you're really with a person. Another high value one, this would be great for a gap year. This isn't on the list of other suggestions. So let me throw this out there now. Have you heard me talk about Big Brothers Big Sisters? It's a great organization. It is everywhere. It is a big thing. You may have heard of it. I would consider that strongly if I were you and I had time off especially to do this. The time requirement is very minimal. It's 1 hour a month. It's 1 hour a month that you spend with a person who may have no idea what futures could be out there for them. So for you, as a person who has been to college and has some direction to tell a young person, perhaps at risk, look what the possibilities are. Those discussions maybe come later, after the trip to the ice cream store or going to play at the park or other kinds of things. But the mentorship that you provide to that person, that young person, I think is of tremendously high value for both of you. And it happens to look good to admissions committees. And I've said before also that I can't wait to read somebody's application where they've superpowered it, they've supersized it, and gotten a group of pre-meds together to go do their mentoring with Big Brothers Big Sisters together. So you pick a Saturday, that's your Saturday hour of the month, and you do it as a group. You do it as a group of mentors and kids. So waiting to see that idea come true. So let's see some other questions here. How can I explain gap years to admissions committee? Should I write about it? You absolutely should write about it. And you might mention if it's planned or not planned, but I think that a gap year can be a great way to add some power to your application, depending on what you're doing. And hopefully you're doing some very meaningful things to help you grow and to put good into the world. That's the point, right? So you can write about it. Really, you can just address the activities that you're doing, you know. Um, I would also say that if you're not a journaler, if you're not recording all of these things that you're doing, more than just a blurb, just more than just like a few words in an Excel formula with the date and who you shadowed or whatever, I would expand on that some way. So if anybody's new, if you go to look at, where is that? Like the application workshop, like being a, it's, maybe it's presentation, like the oldest one that's on there right now, that talks about getting organized and putting everything you can think of on your desktop, right? And part of that is a reflection section, which helps you down the road write your personal statement and other parts of that application. Do you understand what I'm saying? Is everybody getting me? So you can look back. But I have previously said that to be successful, the people who are most successful are organized. So they have a plan. They have a detailed plan. They change the plan. Goals come and go. Okay. They're organized and they're disciplined to attack that plan. Right. But I've added one recently, and that's reflection, because you can be very organized and do a lot of things and learn a lot, but to be able to express what it feels like in your heart and your head to have accomplished these things. What does it feel like when you played bingo at the nursing home? You need to come back and write about it. It feels good. You did a good thing. Maybe you shared some moving stories with a person. Um, what do you get out of that? But if you reflect on it, and if you reflect on it in a timely way so that you've got that to look back at, I think it can help your application too. Okay. So you might, in a gap setting, you might have to go back and kind of retro journal. But and some people, I want to say, put their gap year in they mention it in a new question for non-traditional. So there's a question now: do you consider yourself non-traditional, and why? And a lot of people have it's a variety of reasons. That's why we don't define it for you. You get to define it. And a lot of people have a lot of different reasons that they think of themselves as non-traditional, but very commonly is that they're out of college, not going straight down the path, having a summer break and going into medical school. So so that's a section where you can mention it. But really, I think you're going to talk about it in terms of the experiences that you've gained, you know. And let's see, are non-healthcare jobs frowned upon? No, we'll get into, when we talk about activities more, we'll talk about that. So with COVID, it's been hard to volunteer, and I was wondering how that would affect an applicant. So I'm going to take this chance. I am going to screen share something. And then I can what I'll do is I'll put a link to it on the channel so that you have access to it when you go look at the recording. So first, admissions committees everywhere are just as frustrated and, disappointed and aggravated with the whole COVID situation in terms of just the cycle, right? It has thrown all of us for a loop. I think we're all managing very well in terms of the admissions cycle. I wish for you, I hope that your family has been well and you haven't suffered any terrible consequences because of COVID, but it certainly has been an annoyance, to say the least. Admissions committees everywhere are being very flexible about accepting online coursework, accepting college credit that has changed from a grade to a pass-fail or a satisfactory or credit, whatever whatever you're earning right now. We've been flexible in the cycle, and we're also flexible about what we see in the application. And people are finding ways to continue. I think back last March, it was very difficult for people because things just shut down. But then as time went by, people have become more and more creative, getting involved in even things that are virtual. So let me show you this. This is on our website. When you go to the Long School of Medicine website, and admissions is one of the first things you'll see, and then you'll see, can y'all see this, my green bars? Can you see COVID semester alternatives? Usually I get a green bar. Okay. So this is on our website. You'll go to admissions, and then the first section there is COVID related issues from our school. We also link to what's happening at the other Texas schools. And then there's this document. So there are some kind of interesting things that you could do just by yourself. One of the things you could do is tour the organ systems. And what I mean is, if you were going to shadow, or if it's hard for you to find a medically related thing, go explore it on your own. The key here is you can't put in your application, I surfed the internet and looked up healthcare stuff. You can't do it. You can't put that, right? But if you said, I'm going to do this in a systematic, organized way, I'm going to take an organ system and I'm going to find out all kinds of things about this organ system. So pick the cardiovascular system, look at the anatomy, look at the physiology, look up diseases and disorders, and maybe log this, journal this in a way like you're trying to learn from it, just as if you were shadowing. Okay. Google that, then look at laboratory and imaging techniques, treatment modalities. What are the questions that we should ask in a history of the patient? What are they experiencing? And then if you just say in Google or a search engine, how do I examine the cardiovascular system? How do I examine the heart? There are fantastic doctors out there walking you through this, and you could really learn a lot. But again, you have to do it systematically, just like you would put on the right clothing and put on the right attitude and make some goals to go shadow. You do that for this virtual experience that you're driving as well. Okay. And I think, and you log your hours and you log it in the application like an activity. I think you could make goals to read books by physicians. There are some wonderful things out there. Oliver Sacks is one of my favorites. He's an old author. There are tons of new authors. And Richard Seltzer writes in a very provocative way about, being a surgeon in the 50s and 60s, I think it was, some very interesting short stories. He has short stories. Read a book about medicine. So read, there are some wonderful things. Henrietta Lacks comes to mind. It was a painful but very informative book called Asperger's Children, and about child care and being a pediatrician in the Nazi regime. And so that's interesting. So you can read books. So I love this one. I think schools are opening up. So I think these things become maybe less available to you, but helping to teach and homeschool children and give those parents a break, because Lord, what a mess that has been. They need help. So, and serve your community, even like stocking a grocery store, doing a food delivery service like Shipt, gather supplies for a nonprofit, help look up Red Cross and see what you can do. So those are some ideas for maybe even non-healthcare related ways to volunteer. And people, the Robin Company has been remote scribing for a long time. I think they started in Austin, but they're in several places now. They started before COVID. And I think that can be a valuable experience too. So let's see. Any other like COVID related questions? We can get into some ideas here. A book. Okay, good. We have some suggestions. Thank you, Linda. Rana Oddish wrote In Shock. Okay, that's great. So, and Melinda, if you go to Long School of Medicine, maybe I can put it in the chat. I'll put it in the chat when we take a break, or like towards the end or something. Okay, but you can find it on the Long School of Medicine website, and under the COVID section, one of the last items there is a hyperlink just to that document. Okay.
I have
Any
a
other?
question about
Yes.
research like in COVID has kind of been hard to like find. And when I thought I found like a research position, it's kind of just data entry for other people doing research. So I'm just kind of wondering, like, is research high priority? Like, what to do about that?
It's so for us and many other schools, research is not a deal breaker. Do you have healthcare experience? They ask on the application. If you put no, that's kind of a deal breaker. But not having research experience is not a deal breaker, but it certainly is a great way to learn more about healthcare and what happens, before you get to the exam room to give a person treatment. It's an excellent way to find out all kinds of things. You shouldn't do anything that you're like, okay, I've got to do this to check it off the list. You should go, of course, with the purpose of learning more, so and we try to avoid, you didn't say this, Claire, you didn't say just, I'm saying it in case anybody's thinking, yeah, I don't want to do just research, I don't want to do just data entry, right? But if you go with a purpose to help and serve, and you feel good that you got all this stuff done for other people, and you keep track of what they're doing and try to learn more, that would be fine. I understand, it's not, it may not be the highest level, but all good things are good. That's one of my mottos. All good things are good. You're doing something good and worthwhile. Now I forgot your question. Tell me your specific question again.
It was mainly just like, is research like high priority, like,
yeah,
like how shadowing is?
Yes. So you should, I want to say, generally speaking, not as, that it's okay not to. And you need to put that in your list of things to do to find out about that from all the schools that you're applying to eventually, because it could be high priority for some schools.
Okay. And then also, because like shadowing in COVID is kind of hard to find, and like I'm fortunate enough that my brother and my father are both practicing physicians, so I've been shadowing them a lot because their practices allow me to. But is that frowned upon because they're like family, or is that okay as long as it's experience?
Yeah. So to whom much is given, much is expected. People in this room would give a limb, to have a family member being a physician. So you need to take full advantage of that. In a normal time, that means you use your brother and your father to help you with ideas of what else to see, who else to see. So yeah, it's sort of, it's not bad, but it's like you're in a zone and you're not getting out of that zone, right? But it's COVID now. So if that gets you steeped in healthcare, then it's a blessing, right? So I would comment on that. I would make a comment to say you were or are still actively seeking others, but you were blessed to have family members in the field, right?
Okay.
So you want to raise your hand if you want to go shadow Claire's family? maybe y'all could arrange something. Yes, food banks, that's good. So I love the ideas. We were on research. I know that people have found positions as research, and it just is so variable area to area and that kind of thing. But research assistant work, helping with clinical research, contact tracing, COVID related telephone calls and contact tracing, those kinds of things you can find in communities. So I don't know where y'all are, but in whatever municipality you are, you could call the city health system and see, like, is there something I can do there? That might be something. Do you all have other ideas about research? Is anybody able to find something?
Been connected on campus, but I've been researching with them since 2019, so it's just been kind of stable.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, just going like to the different professors, because a lot of them are super excited to have undergrad or even post back. I don't know if post back, but just students in general to have that new perspective.
Yes. So that's an idea. I think of finding some research opportunities. To the top of my head comes a health science center or a medical school or a medical facility. But maybe undergrad science research is another way that you could do something that's productive. Thank you, Ruby. That's good. Um,
I work at an eye clinic, and I know my clinic does some clinical research. We have some studies going right now, and so it's in the works, and it's kind of in the process of me getting involved. But that's something that I'm trying to reach out to. So I think like clinical settings may or may not also have some opportunities.
Yes, great. That's great. So Prerna, what do you think, or anybody else who has a thought about this? How do you do that? You just find people in your area in case you can go in person, I guess, and ask, right?
hmm I think for me, it
I
was.
emailed
Go ahead.
That's okay. Claire
Oh,
and
I had
Prerna
emailed
again.
my Okay. I had emailed my professor who worked at a clinic. She was like a part-time professor and part-time physician at this one clinic in Waco. And she set me up with the data entry position. And I was also a screener for COVID over the summer before they had data to enter. So like literally just reaching out to professors or even the clinic directly, especially in college towns, like they're like eager to have people do like not the busy work, I would say, but like stuff that like they have like no one to hire for
Yes,
specifically. Like college towns like love that.
yes, that's great. I hope that helps some people with some ideas. Prerna, what were you going to say?
I was going to say that I think it also just helped that I was already in that setting, that I could just go, like to the other part of the building and kind of, let them know that I was interested. But I agree. I think trying to find those connections or going in person, I think makes a big difference. I feel like it's usually more successful if you know, try to approach somebody in person than just send a cold email.
Yes, yes. Very good. And Elisenda says I was able to reach out to different professors. Y'all see the chat via email and got a position that way. Yeah. So one thing you can do is draft something, draft a nice email. I would be sure to say you're applying soon. You have a lot of experience. You would take this seriously and really want to contribute to the work of the team. Let them know tell them a little bit about yourselves as pre-meds there. Okay, let's see. And COVID. So I want to talk about this, and I think we'll get to all the questions. I want to make sure we get to this one. What advice, and I think this is for everyone to respond to this, what advice would you have if for some reason, and I can think of many, if for some reason we get discouraged and decide not to go to medical school anymore? So if you look at that first application video thing, the application workshop, and I'm telling you about structuring, organizing all of your components of the application, there's a section there that says, what does it say? What does it say? It's the part where I forget the title of it now, but it's the part where you had, I can't remember. Oh my gosh. It's your spiritual health section. Like it is hard. It is a hard road. You need family and faith and friends and fortitude to get through this, get down the path. You're going to meet a lot of obstacles. So you need a section. You need some resources where you can go to lift yourself up. So either with family or, others, or Pinterest memes or Bible or whatever it is, you need a way to get through hard times. So I'm so glad that somebody asked this, I would say to a person, like, do some internal, do some reflection on it, but then also maybe talk to people, because it may just be that you're feeling overwhelmed and that you're going to get through this. You have to see how your motivation to do it stronger than the feeling of being overwhelmed is, so I think it would take some time, and I wouldn't make a snap decision not to if you've been quite far down the road. Rebecca, were you going to say something? I thought I saw you. Anybody else want to add something? Has anybody else felt like that?
I like, especially during like OChem or physics, like it's like, oh, like this is like kind of really difficult. And I feel like just like going shadowing or like any like clinical experience like makes me like, okay, no, there's like a reason I'm doing this. It like makes me more excited. Or even just like asking like other physicians like about like what made them go into the medical field. It like gets me more excited and gives me more like motivation.
That's right.
Especially during like classes like physics.
Yes, exactly. I did organic twice and physics 3 times, so I know what you mean. It's it feels impossible sometimes. It's not easy. So I think that's great advice to find something that is fun about it that you've enjoyed before, like shadowing. Find that physician, talk to friends, reach out. All right. So now ideas from the group. Let's see. Oh, I talked about this already. Sorry, this was in the wrong section. How does it look if we're really limited during our gap year? There are quite a few people out there who in this shutdown, in this pandemic, are living with people who are at risk, high risk. And so you can't venture out. So really people want to stay at home for not just their sake, but the sake of the family or family member. And so what does it look like if you can only tutor online? I would talk about it. And I've seen this. Let me say it here. I think it's important if you had any sort of changes during your path because of the COVID pandemic, which I think the answer would be yes to anybody applying last cycle, this cycle, and the next few cycles. You need to just comment on that. You don't have to write a big thing about it, but some people are writing about how they were positively affected by COVID, how they might be negatively affected by COVID, or simply in the section, there's a section that says, have you had educational disruption? You could say, I'm an applicant who did get hit with the COVID pandemic, and I've tried to do my best to find things that could carry me down the path. And that's really all you need to say, one little sentence like that. And then when we go on to look at your personal biography and the virtual experiences, then we have that context. So I would even suggest that you might consider putting it in educational disruption. It's not like you lost time at school, but was it, did you have other things happen to you? You certainly were affected. You all were affected. Did somebody else want to say something? Happy to. Yes. Yes, great. So let's see. So there are some ideas from you all about hands-on healthcare experience. EMT. Is anybody in here an EMT certified person? So I think you can find that. I know that there are some available on campuses, but I think you can go to the fire department, look up how do you get certified. Good. Melinda's taking a class in the summer. So where'd you find the class, Melinda? Like at your undergrad institution? Local community college. There you go. There you go. That's a good idea. CNA, certified nurse assistant, a medical assistant, or a certified medical assistant. Oh yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Thanks. We got the message. That's a great idea. I wasn't sure if you called the fire department or what, but to take a class at a community college is a great idea. Lab assistant. Um, so somebody gave us this idea, participating in eshadow.com. It's e-shadow.com. And that's Dr. Ryan Gray every Monday, 7 p.m. Central Time. So I think there are some virtual shadowing opportunities out there. And maybe you just search in your browser and see what you can come up with. Food banks need volunteers, absolutely. And Linda mentioned that earlier. A medical mission trip. If you search medical mission trip, you come up with numerous hits from organizations that travel around the world. And I'm sure there are a variety of ways that you can help or participate in those. Medical scribing, remote or in person. We mentioned a few of those. Contact tracing, we mentioned, and medical office work. Anything more specific to those healthcare ideas?
At least at my university, there are a lot of like pre-med clubs or like medical like oriented clubs, and finding like service organizations. Like I know Baylor has like medical service organizations, like literally MSO, and they do medical mission trips. So you can like apply through them, or also just like service, because you, in order to be an active member, you have to serve like X amount of hours. And it's like been a really good like opportunity just to like find things in Waco that I wouldn't have found if it was just like I was on my own.
Yes.
And there's like a lot of different clubs, like not just like MSO at my university. So like literally just like looking out for those.
Yes, that's great. Is anybody post-bac? And if you're going to be post-bac, can you reach back? It's hard to reach back into your college, right? Yeah. So that's going to take a little more creativity. But I still think the medical clinic, reaching out to places that you've been before is great, and into clinics and things. And the health department in your city also. Contact tracing, medical office work. So, and volunteering. So, I think this is a little bit easier to handle, and is volunteering, because there are so many places I think in need right now. But there are big ones that some people have done recently, and every year we interview a handful of people who've done the Peace Corps, and that we understand then that you really turn off every other section of your life to go do that. But that is very that's a high value commitment right there. And I think it's a 2-year commitment. AmeriCorps is another one. I think that's 1 or 2 years that you can do. And there's another thing called City Year. That's another federal program. So they give you a stipend. Their mission is leadership and service. So communities put a proposal in for a grant, usually for communities in need, or kids at academic or other risk. And so you apply to that, and you are in charge of teams who are trying to implement that project. And it's a year. I don't know if you need to have finished college or what, but I think that's a great experience. Teach for America. Just reaching out to schools to say, can I help tutor or teach? I know science. Can I help do some of that? That would be another idea that I've got. Do y'all have any other ideas? Nursing home, assisted living facility. I think that's very high value. and probably those things are easy to find. Somebody suggests that you could go to an assisted living facility and play musical instruments. If you've got a musical instrument talent that you can cart there. I know that some people are even doing virtual visits at the nursing home. So they're doing virtual visits with the elderly this way. And I've interviewed a few people and I said, how did you do that? And they just call the facility, they call the home, and then they set up a meeting. You could even, I guess, instigate that if the place you call hadn't thought of that before, to just visit, tell stories, read somebody a book, or play Scriblio on Zoom. Yes, Prerna.
Sorry, I just raised my hand on this with the emoji. I don't know how to turn off.
Okay,
Sorry.
I got you.
But I was gonna say that the crisis text line, it's a virtual platform, and so I started it kind of near when the pandemic started, and I feel like it's a good way to stay at home, stay safe, and still feel like you're really making a difference, because you have very tough conversations and you gain a lot of skills, and you're helping people along the way. So I think that's been a very powerful way for me to be involved without having to be in contact with a lot of people.
That's great. I think, and I've interviewed a few people this year who have been doing it, and the experience, the training, and then those experiences really seem so important. Is it where do you find that? Is it a statewide, nationwide? What kind of a program is it? Who
I think it's a nationwide.
Okay.
Yeah, you can find it online, and you can find they have different cohorts where that you can sign up for dates for your training, and then once you're trained, it's like a weekly commitment. And I mean, I don't know where the people are that I talk to, but I believe they're all from America. Yeah.
Okay, great. I think that that's a great idea. And, when the admissions committee, when we read those things that like, we've never heard of that, what is that? So it's very helpful then when we get stories from you or from the people that we interview about, what you actually did. And that sounds, it sounds like a great experience and gives you a lot, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You get a lot too. Linda says you might want to ask for the activities director. What a great idea. What a great idea. Just find a place where people are being cared for, whatever age, whatever ability, and then just say, how can I help? That's a great idea. Call the activities director. Let's see. So there are some academic things you can do in a gap year also, and those are working on a master's. A lot of people do, because they're interested in healthcare, they do a master's in public health. Other post-bac programs. And one person asks, if my GPA is high, would a post-bac or master's be considered risky because it could lower your GPA? So you don't want to lower your GPA, but that's not why. So I wouldn't consider that. I wouldn't consider that in the decision to do a master's program. I would consider, do I love this? Am I excited about learning this new aspect of healthcare, especially now, like public health is booming now because of the pandemic. So no, I don't think people would say, oh gosh, the GPA went down. Like, how far down is it going to go, right? So it's not going to go down far. So it's not going to go down, it's going to go up. A lot of people do the master's program to help grades, to help to boost the overall GPA. So don't think about it like that. Is that James?
This is James. Instead of doing a master's program, I was looking at like certificate-based programs in like data science and especially big data with Python. how does that look for medical schools if I do like certificate-based programs at like accredited universities like Stanford or Harvard? But I'm going to tie it back to medicine, obviously, with like data analysis or patient data records and stuff like that.
Yeah. Remember, one of my mottos is all good things are good. So that sounds like something, I think we can hear enthusiasm in your voice about it, and some expertise maybe there also. So I think that that's a great thing. I think it's a great thing. You know, as long as you're showing us also that, you know, some people's goal and calling is to do research and not do the interaction with people part, right? There are different paths there. So if you're going to medical school, they still, of course, as you said, want to still see the human connection piece, right?
Okay. Thank you.
Which you do with other activities. Yeah. And so it's just another chance to repeat, if you're, you know, that you need all those pieces. You need the important pieces in there, that connection with people through healthcare or community service, as you're having a gap from academics. Okie doke. Let's see, other master's programs. MCAT study, so that's a big one. And if you're still in school and you're thinking about, so I think this is most exciting. If you're coming to the end of your college road and can just plan ahead for a year or two, you could put all kinds of things into that gap year. You know, you could take the first, if you are lucky enough to maybe have a place where you don't have to go work all day to, you know, make a living. If you have a place to live, you could devote some great all day, everyday study time for the MCAT, get that out of the way, do mission trips, learn a language. This is my chance to say personal growth plan, right? Was anybody at that session, the personal growth plan session? So let me show you this. Do you know what I'm talking about? Let me share my screen, because I love this thing. I have to find it. There it is. There's my green bar. So personal growth plan. There's a YouTube video out there about this. And this is a way that if you are setting goals, if you're being organized about your plan, one component is going to be some self-analysis. What do you need to do better? What do you want to do better? What new thing would you like to learn to expand your horizons, right? So this is what you do. You make a plan. Here's some examples that I give you on that video. Young lady, two actually, Amy, had a terrible time. They were very shy. So Amy had a terrible time meeting new people. It really just almost froze her. She had a hard time talking to new people. So one of the Amy's went and got a job at Jack in the Box at the window. So what did she do? All day, every day, she talked to people. She talked to new people. She tried to serve people and communicate in a good way. And the other young lady was on a college campus still, undergrad. And so she made a pact with her roommate. And instead of saying, no, I'm not going to go do that, I don't want to go with y'all, that's fine, I'm just going to stay here and study, she went to the fairs and the events and the parties and things. But not only did she go, she made a goal to talk to 3 new people. And she hated it. It was painful. But by the end of the semester, she saw herself really overcoming something that she realized was something that would make her a better doctor, right? So that's what you can do. And you can do it in all kinds of areas. So in this document, I just give you some ideas. You could be more organized. You could make a personal growth plan. It's like a goal. Make some goals. Be better organized. Get some app or work your calendar so that you really become more organized. Maybe it needs to be more detailed, or you need to research it a little bit. That's one way. Learn a language. If you learn a language, it's going to Spanish. I say particularly because we're going to get the census back soon, and we're going to learn that 20% of the population, 50% of the population speak Spanish. So that's a good one when we're serving people in the clinics, and not just in Texas, but everywhere. So that would be a good one. But other people have taught themselves sign language or French because that's the family language, or other things. So, so think about that. Did you used to play something and you need to like hone your skills, or wouldn't you like to learn how to play the ukulele? I think it's only 4 strings. I think that would be kind of easy, and portable. So just you can do anything here. Improve your vocabulary, use a dictionary app and use the word during the day, and look at the words you're learning. Take your hobby to a new level. For example, if you're already a reader, log your books, log them and say how you liked them. What did you like about them? Work your way through all your favorite authors. That's a nice personal growth plan thing. Do something for your mind and spirit, make a goal to go work out more regularly, or go be a better church goer and that kind of thing. And then there are things like Toastmasters, for example, to help you with your professional skills. Toastmasters is a club that's everywhere. It's on every campus, many in every city. And you get together and you do little impromptu. They say, okay, Brittany, you're up and we want you to talk 3 minutes about pets. And you just take off and get up and talk, and you learn to communicate better. It's a nice professionalism thing to do. Learn a new hobby: knitting, sewing, painting, crochet. Anyway, so there might be things you need to work on or that you want to learn. And so a gap year is a great time to work on a personal growth plan. And for more ideas and things, you can go look at that YouTube video. And take time. One suggestion from the group is to take time to work on your mental health and recover from burnout. Not a bad idea to work on that aspect of your wellness. So that we're through all the questions and ideas. I hope that gave you some ideas. I got some ideas to help other people along the way.